Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the CD Racoola Show. Today's show, we are traveling all the way back to 1958 to review the film The Hall of Dracula. That title is extremely fitting because this film really put the horror back in the Dracula franchise, especially for the time. I mean, it was still pretty new. It didn't have insane special effects by today's standards, for sure, but it definitely did its best to make sure that you knew that Dracula was definitely one bad dude with the red eyes and fangs and whatnot. A little different than the original. I love special effects, I really do. But one of the things I love, especially about Dracula, and they do this in lots of other vampire films, is the fact that Dracula can go from looking like a normal, everyday dude to a complete lunatic, demonic creature. I mean, look at these films, for example. First, let's look at this 1958 Dracula film. Dracula was played by Christopher Lee, and we will really delve into the greatness that is Christopher Lee here in a second. But I want you to see this here in this photo. He is in normal, everyday dude with a cape form. And here he is in a full vampire mode. So awesome, you know. Now, here is another film, Vampire in Brooklyn. I know I've talked about this film before. It's got Eddie Murphy. Here he is just looking like a cool, well-dressed guy with some slick back hair, to full demonic vampire mode. Okay, one more before we press on with the horror of Dracula. Here is Bram Stoker's Dracula film from 1992, with Count Dracula looking like a normal guy with like Princess Leia buns on the side of his head. Well, so maybe he doesn't look that normal here, but here he is in full vampire mode. A little bit scarier, at least, you know. Okay, let's push on with the reason you're here. Back to the Hall of Dracula, the film. It was directed by Terence Fisher, who also directed the films The Curse of Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Curse of the Werewolf. He was kind of a Wes Craven-like director for the times, I would say. True man of horror was old Mr. Fisher. Now, let's get to what you really want to talk about here in this film. The star of the show, Christopher Lee. He was not only in this film as Dracula, but he reprised the role of Dracula and or a vampire in several other films. He was even in Gremlins too. I didn't know that. Gotta love the Gremlin films. I mentioned those in another review, I think. Those were just so neat, and I'd completely forgotten he was in that sequel to the original Gremlins. He was just in tons of great horror, that's for sure. Truly a great villain, and I love villains. How much more fun is it to be a villain than some boring white knight hero type? At least in my personal opinion, it's got to be more fun to play a bad guy. Christopher Lee played the part of a powerful Sith Lord whom lost his head in a little franchise you might have heard of called Star Wars. You might have heard of that, I don't know. He was Count Dooku, of course. He would be a count, wouldn't he? Heck, Count Dooku even dressed like a vampire. Come to think of it, I think lots of those Sith Lords had a lot in common with vampire lore. They lived long, rather prolonged lives, and seemed pale and sickly like a vampire, but with unbelievable strength and cunning. He also played the great and terrible wizard Saruman in the Lord of the Rings series. What a bad guy old Saruman turned out to be. How deliciously bad. He was also in the Hobbit series as well, reprising his role as Saruman. Not only was he in Dracula in both Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, but he was a Bond villain in The Man with the Golden Gun. It's said that Christopher Lee may have even been the real-life inspiration for James Bond. Holy macaroni and blood sandwiches! I've lived a couple lifetimes at this point, but Christopher Lee was able to accomplish more than me in merely one lifetime. It's not fair! It's not fair, I tell you. If this review of the 1958 Dracula film sounds like a Christopher Lee appreciation video, then maybe it is, baby. Let's call a spade, you know. He was truly incredible in this film, though the story of this film itself is more of just a pretty standard take on Bram Stoker's Dracula novel. Speaking of epic horror actors that were in this film, Professor Van Helsing, by the way, was played by Peter Cushing, who played in loads of films, but was Governor Tarkin in Star Wars. He was the big boss of the Death Star, if you remember. And for all of you Star Wars fans, I felt like actors back in the day, they were just so busy, it seemed like. They were always working, you know. I guess that really isn't that much different than today's actors, like Brad Pitt, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and you know, Tom Cruise, Tommy Boy. They all seem to stay pretty busy with their own projects, so, you know, maybe that's just a thing I'm seeing. Okay, I spent a lot of time on the cast with this review, but it was just too awesome, you know. How could I not? I just couldn't help myself. This film was not that scary by today's standards, but I will give it a modest score on old CD's Scarometer, just because it did have some creepy parts here and there, and I liked Dracula's death scene at the end, when hit by the sunlight. Kind of cool, especially for the times, and as I said before, if you are a fan of older films and all things Dracula, and want to see some of the goats of horror acting, you should definitely set aside some time from your, your busy little schedule and grab yourself an economy-sized bag of Cheetos and have a seat on maybe a dirty old beanbag or something somewhere and give it a watch, you know. I know how you humans are with your beanbags and your Cheetos, you disgusting peasants. I would like to thank you once again for joining me here on the CD Racoola Show, and if you would be my personal goat, just like Christopher Lee, and hit the like, share, and subscribe button, I would be most grateful. I'd be forever in your service. Please join me next episode when I review the film Wishmaster. Oh, what a naughty little genie that Wishmaster is, or a djinn, I guess you should say. It's going to be lots of spooky fun. Till next time, if you wake up a little groggy and the sun hurts your eyes, maybe you were bitten by a vampire and are slowly turning into the creature of the night, forced to feed on human blood. Goody. Well, either that or, maybe you shouldn't have drank so much alcohol and partied so hard the night before, you dummy. Ha 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 ha! Ta-ta!